Joining us is the Deputy Opposition Leader Sussan Ley. Sussan, good to have you with us. So back to Julia's story. Labor was given a 5-month heads up in June last year that they were likely to lose that critical legal case being NZYQ. Then came the decision in November and 149 detainees were released, as we know. How would you describe that response?
Happy Valentine's Day, Pete. It's great to kick it off on your show. I think that Anthony Albanese, Claire O'Neill and Andrew Giles need a date with the truth today. And what you've just described is something that we were aware of in the lead up to this scramble at the end of last year, which only underscores the hopelessness and haplessness of this minister. For 149 detainees to be out on the streets, including what really worries me, 37 sex offenders, some who have committed crimes against children. We don't know how many have ankle bracelets. We don't even know where they are. We know that several have been rearrested, I think 18, and we don't know what the government has planned for the next step. But what we do know is they didn't apply for one single preventative detention order. You think they would have scratched up the initiative or something to just prepare one preventative detention order. Clearly many more were needed, but they had the legislation in place.
They've pointed to you, just on that point, Sussan, they've pointed to you over that because the legal threshold now is so high that they don't want to make a mistake and have it rejected. Does that wash?
No, it doesn't wash at all. I mean, where was the minister? He was attending voice rallies. I think one of those rallies was in London. He wasn't focused on what he had to do. When is this minister going to go? When is Anthony Albanese going to sack him? Clearly, it needs to happen. And if he doesn't sack him, then this is on the Prime Minister, because it's absolutely shameful that not one single preventative detention order was applied for. And I sat through this charade at the end of last year. We rushed the legislation through. We wrote half of it for the government, and they have simply sat on their hands. And meanwhile, community safety seems completely unimportant.
Well, that's the point they're making. You wrote it for the government, but that's led it to being such a high legal threshold, which is why they want to get all their ducks in a row now to make sure an application is successful.
I don't think they're getting any ducks in a row. I don't think they plan to get any ducks in a row, Pete. I think they just moved on to something else, which was not keeping the community safe. And why has this minister not been able to answer these basic questions? So why are they not monitoring the 149 people who were released, 37 sex offenders? There were murderers there. There are people who, remember, are not accepted back in their own countries or any other country. They are unlawful non-citizens. They are walking our streets, and this government does not know where they are and cannot give an assurance that they're even being monitored.
I was watching those question and answers, and the minister, I mean, he was vague on details, that's for sure. Does that point to obfuscation, transparency problems, or issues with competence?
He's completely inept and completely incompetent, and it's embarrassing to watch him. And I just sit there and I can't believe it. For 2 full days we've had this in the Parliament. And I've been waiting for the Prime Minister to somehow mop this up and stand up in front of cameras and explain how he, the Prime Minister, is keeping the community safe and can reassure us that we know where these people are, we're monitoring them where we need to, and so on. And none of that has happened. Okay. So it simply is a question of when Andrew Giles has to go.
Separate story, this bushfire emergency in Victoria this morning, Sussan. The pressure is on the Victorian state government over these massive power outages. Is it old infrastructure, or was it the conditions that couldn't be helped yesterday?
I really feel for the people of Victoria. Remember, there are hundreds of thousands of households now without power, and that's extraordinarily worrying for people who rely on electricity to keep themselves safe, to keep themselves cool, who are vulnerable, who are older. This is a dreadful situation for them. And it is a reminder, Pete, that we need secure and stable supply in the system.
Sussan Ley, we'll leave it there. Appreciate your time, though. We'll talk to you soon.